You ever been in a space where someone left you hurt, confused, maybe even questioning your worth, and the first instinct is to prove something to them, maybe show them what they lost? Post a little extra on social media, talk a little louder when they're around, make sure they notice that glow, up, right. But here's the real truth, the real key. Asterisk asterisk detachment is power asterisk asterisk. Not the type of detachment that's bitter or fake, but the kind that says, I don't need your validation to breathe. When you act like he never existed, you're not being petty, you're being powerful. See, what we don't always realize is that our attention is currency. Every thought you give him, every text you almost send, every time you replay the conversations in your head, you're paying him with your peace. And the truth is, if someone didn't see your value while they had access to you, they're not supposed to have a front row seat to your healing process either. You don't owe that to anyone. Now, acting like he never existed doesn't mean you're pretending it didn't hurt. It means you've made a decision, a choice. You're choosing to stop carrying the emotional weight of someone who already let go. And when you do that, when you truly let go, something wild starts to happen. Peace shows up. Clarity pulls up a chair. You start hearing your own voice again. You stop waking up checking your phone, hoping maybe, just maybe, he had a moment of decency. No, because you're not waiting anymore. You're moving. When you detach, you shift the balance. Because guess what? People feel it when their access gets revoked. Especially when they were used to the version of you that bent over backwards to be seen, to be loved, to be chosen. The silence, it's loud, the distance deafening, and it does something to them, not always instantly, but eventually, because the absence of your energy forces them to confront the reality of who they are without it. And the best part, detachment isn't for him. It's not a game to make him chase you. It's for you. It's so you can sleep without knots in your stomach, so you can eat without the taste of anxiety in your mouth. So you can laugh again, really laugh, without wondering if he's stalking your stories or if he even cares. Because the moment you stop trying to perform healing for the sake of being noticed and start living healing for the sake of being whole, everything changes. You begin to realize he was never the center of your story. He was just a chapter, and not even the good one. And maybe you needed that chapter to remember your own strength, to see what you won't tolerate ever again, to understand that not every loss is a loss. Some are redirections, some are wake-up calls wrapped in disappointment. And here's the thing, when you act like he never existed, you're not erasing the memory, you're removing the power. You're saying, I remember what happened, but I no longer let it control me. That's not cold. That's evolution, that's maturity, that's growth, and ironically, that's when they always want to come back. Not because they suddenly found wisdom, but because your detachment made them uncomfortable. It reminded them of what they lost when they thought you'd always be available. You stopped reacting. You stopped chasing. You stopped trying to explain why you deserved better, and that silence, that graceful, powerful silence, it echoes. Let him sit with that. Let him wonder. Let him scroll through your photos, unsure if you even think about him anymore. And whether he begs to return or not, it doesn't matter, because you're not sitting by the door hoping he knocks. You've already walked through a new one. You see, the moment you choose yourself and mean it, the whole world begins to shift in your favor. The energy you spent on proving your worth to someone who couldn't see it, it gets rerouted. It starts watering your dreams, your peace, your future. And if he ever does come back around, begging, pleading, full of regret, let him meet the version of you that doesn't need closure, doesn't need validation, and sure as hell doesn't need permission to move forward. You already left, he's just now realizing it. Let me tell you something, heartbreak has a sneaky way of making you forget who you are. You wake up one day and it's like you've been living in someone else's story. You've poured into somebody so much that when they walk away, you're left staring at a mirror, wondering what's left. But here's the thing, you were never broken. You were just focused on the wrong investment. And now it's time to shift all that energy back to the most important person in your life. Asterisk you asterisk. See, a lot of people think healing starts with closure, or an apology, or some long, drawn-out conversation where the other person finally admits they were wrong. But real healing doesn't wait for somebody else to get it. Real healing begins the moment you decide to choose yourself. When you stop trying to be enough for someone who never even knew how to handle your light, and instead start being more than enough for your own future. Let's be real for a second. You probably gave him the best parts of you, your time, your effort, your patience, maybe even your dreams in small ways. And when it all crumbled, you were left feeling empty, like you lost something. But what you really lost was an illusion. You didn't lose love. You lost someone who didn't know what to do with yours. You didn't lose your worth. You just forgot how powerful it was. But here's the good news, your worth never left. It's been waiting on you to remember it. And when you remember it, oh, that's when the real glow-up begins. I'm not talking about just doing your hair different or hitting the gym, though that's part of it. I'm talking about the inner glow, the kind that shows up when you start setting boundaries, not to push people away, but to protect your peace. The kind that shows up when you spend time alone, not because you're lonely, but because you're learning to love your own company again. The kind that shines through when you start speaking kindly to yourself in the mirror, when you celebrate your wins, even the small ones. You've got to start feeding your soul. Pour into the things that bring you life. Write again, travel, build that business, pick up that hobby. Surround yourself with people who don't just love you, but respect your time and energy. When you shift your focus from what left you to what's ahead of you, you take your power back. And it's not about pretending you're okay. It's about becoming okay, little by little, choice by choice. There's something magnetic about someone who knows their worth. You walk different, you talk different. You stop accepting half-hearted love and start demanding the real thing. Not just from others, but from yourself. You stop saying yes when you mean maybe, and maybe when you mean no. And the beautiful part, that version of you, the one who's grounded, who's growing, who's not waiting for validation that version becomes unstoppable. People can feel that shift, especially the ones who once took your softness for granted. They'll look at you and wonder what changed. They'll sense that you're no longer available for the same old cycles, and that's when they start circling back, trying to get close again, not because they've changed, but because you did. But you're not doing any of this for him. That's the part that makes this powerful. You're not becoming stronger so he regrets losing you. You're becoming stronger because you remembered that you were never meant to shrink yourself in the first place. You're not rising just to be seen. You're rising because you're finally seeing yourself. Listen, you've got too much purpose, too much talent, too much light to keep wasting it on someone who couldn't hold it. Don't dim it for anybody. Don't water yourself down hoping someone else can handle you. Be full, strength, be the whole version of yourself, because the right people won't run from that. They'll honor it. And if he ever happens to see you shining and wants to come back, let him watch. Let him witness what happens when a woman chooses herself, when she stops waiting for someone to choose her first. Because once you've tasted your own peace, your own growth, your own worth, going back won't even be an option. You didn't lose him. You found you. Let me tell you something that might surprise you. You don't always have to say something . I know that sounds wild, especially when someone hurt you, especially when your name was in their mouth, when they disrespected your love, when they left you without explanation, or worse, with lies. The first instinct is to speak up, to defend yourself, to get that last word. But here's what I've learned. Silence speaks louder than anything you could ever say. And when it's used right, it becomes a language of power, dignity, and self-respect. You see, silence isn't weakness. It's not you backing down or letting someone win. No, silence is what happens when you've outgrown the conversation. It's what happens when you realize you're not trying to convince anyone of your worth anymore. Because once you've made peace with the truth, there's no need to keep explaining yourself to people who only ever listen to respond, not to understand. Think about it. How many times have you wasted your breath trying to get someone to see your side, feel your pain, admit their wrongs? You laid your heart out, maybe more than once, and every time it was either ignored or thrown back in your face. And that cycle, it wears you down, it eats away at your peace. But silence, that's when the shift happens. That's when you stop playing defense and start standing in your own strength. Letting your silence do the talking doesn't mean you're holding in pain. It means you're choosing not to let that pain define you. It means instead of reacting, you're reflecting. Instead of trying to be heard, you're listening to yourself. You're creating space to process, to heal, to understand what you deserve going forward. And that, right there, is maturity. That's power, and you know what? People feel it. Oh, they feel it when you go quiet, when you stop texting, when you stop explaining, when you don't post the subtweets, when you stop showing up trying to prove something. That silence hits different. It creates distance, and in that space they start to feel the absence of what they took for granted. You were always the one reaching out, the one fixing things, the one putting in effort. But when you go silent, that's when they start to wonder, wait, did I lose her for real this time? See, your energy was their comfort zone, and when that energy is gone, it disrupts their routine. That silence becomes the mirror they never wanted to look into, because now they're forced to sit with themselves, and not everybody's ready for that. Let me be clear, this isn't about playing games. This isn't the silent treatment that's rooted in manipulation. No, this is about intentional silence. This is about recognizing that peace is more important than proving a point, that healing is more important than being right, that sometimes the loudest statement you can make is choosing not to entertain what no longer deserves your presence. Because what happens when you stay silent long enough? You start to hear you hear the voice that was drowned out by arguments and apologies and back on forths. You begin to trust that voice again. You realize you don't need to beg for closure when peace comes from within. And even better, you don't need to reopen a wound just to show someone how deep it was. If they couldn't value your vulnerability while you were giving it, they don't deserve access to your healing now. Silence gives you control. It allows you to respond when you're ready, not when you're triggered. It allows you to create boundaries, not walls, but boundaries that say, I love myself too much to keep teaching someone how to treat me. That's the kind of quiet that changes everything. Eventually, they always circle back. Maybe it's a text out of nowhere, a memory they suddenly want to share, and I was just thinking about you. And in that moment, your silence has done the job. It reminded them of your value. But the difference now is that you've learned the lesson. You've grown past the need for validation. You've found strength in the stillness. And most importantly, you've learned that peace isn't something you chase. It's something you protect. So if you're sitting there wondering whether to call, whether to explain, whether to defend your name, pause. Ask yourself, do I want peace or do I want noise? 9 times out of 10, peace is the better answer. Let them wonder. Let them replay the conversations they didn't take seriously. Let your silence echo in the spaces where your presence used to live. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing at all. There comes a point in your life where you get tired, not just physically, but spiritually. Tired of holding on to pain that no longer serves you, tired of replaying old conversations, wondering what you could have said differently. Tired of trying to be enough for someone who didn't even know what to do with your love. And that's the moment You may not even recognize it right away, but that's the moment you start leveling up. Because letting go, that's not weakness, that's elevation. A lot of people get stuck because they think letting go means losing. They think if they stop fighting, stop trying, stop hoping he'll come back or change, that they're giving up. But that's not giving up, that's growing up. That's understanding that your peace is worth more than holding onto someone who wasn't meant to walk with you forever. And sometimes the hardest part of the journey is realizing that the person you wanted so badly wasn't the person you needed at all. You can't fly if you're still holding onto dead weight. You can't reach your next level if your hands are full of old pain, old expectations, old stories that no longer fit who you're becoming. And trust me, you are becoming. Every tear you've cried, every sleepless night, every time you've had to remind yourself that you're going to be okay, that's all shaping you. That's not wasted pain, that's preparation. The truth is, healing isn't pretty. It's not candles and playlists and journaling all the time. Sometimes healing is sitting alone in your car with tears running down your face. Sometimes it's deleting a number you've memorized by heart. Sometimes it's choosing not to respond, even though your fingers are hovering over the keyboard. Healing is hard because it requires honesty, and honesty means facing the fact that holding onto him isn't love, it's fear. Fear of starting over, fear of being alone, fear of not being chosen again. But what if I told you that letting go is actually the gateway to becoming who you were always meant to be? What if this whole situation, the heartbreak, the disappointment, the silence, wasn't meant to break you but to build you? See, when you finally decide to let go, what you're really doing is choosing yourself. You're choosing peace over chaos. You're choosing clarity over confusion. You're choosing to move forward, even if you don't have all the answers yet. You might not feel strong while you're doing it. You might still cry. You might still miss him, but that doesn't mean you're weak. That means you're human, and healing doesn't require you to be perfect. It just requires you to be honest, to be brave enough to say, this is no longer for me, and walk away from what you've outgrown. There's something sacred about that decision. When you finally let go, your spirit starts to breathe again. You stop tiptoeing around someone else's insecurities. You stop shrinking to make other people comfortable. You stop carrying burdens that were never yours to begin with. And in that space, in that wide open, honest, terrifying, beautiful space, you start to rediscover yourself. You remember what it feels like to laugh without pretending. You remember what it's like to wake up and not feel anxiety in your chest. You remember who you were before you got so tangled up in trying to fix someone else. And that's when you begin to rise. That's when you start walking differently, talking differently, making choices not from a place of pain, but from a place of power. And here's the kicker. When you start leveling up, when you let go of the negativity, when you stop waiting for closure or change or some magical apology asterisk, they feel it asterisk. Oh, they feel it. It doesn't matter if it's a month later or a year. Something in the energy shifts. They sense that they no longer live rent, free in your mind, and that's when they want back in. But by that time, you've evolved. You've learned how to sit with yourself. You've healed in ways you didn't even know were possible. So even if they come back, and they usually do, you're not the same person anymore. You've let go of what no longer serves you, and now you're serving asterisk yourself asterisk. So, if you're at that point right now, standing on the edge, unsure whether to stay in the familiar pain or step into the unknown peace asterisk jump asterisk, let go, trust the fall, because the version of you that's waiting on the other side, she's wiser, she's stronger, and she doesn't beg anyone to return. She simply moves forward because she knows she never needed them to begin with.